off, hello everybody. How are you guys doing today? Yes. Today is a very interesting day, I must say. So, as a historian, it's really interesting to watch and see the elevation of Juneteenth. And what I mean by that is I remember when I was a kid, especially in California, you didn't hear much about it. I then moved to Texas and it was a national or state holiday in Texas. And even though I was a historian, the crazy thing was I had to be educated about it. All right? Educated. No one taught me in school. No one taught me in graduate school. I had to go to Texas to the space and place to begin to understand it. And so it's beautiful to stand here today and to see so many people, not just African American, but so many people of different races and creeds together celebrating the end of the enslavement of people of African descent in America. Right. Give it up for that, all right? Give it up for that. And I say that because today is a special day. So we got two things going on. One is a celebration of the end of something that people thought was intractable and that would not change. You guys, I hope you follow with me on this a second. So from 1619, and first give it up for Dr. Charles right there, for Dr. Charles Johnson. So as Dr. Charles Johnson broke down for you that in 1619, people of African descent began to come to this place as part of a forced migration. Remember in 1607, the United States had created the first colony, which was Jamestown, which was founded on racial violence. Right. Remember, because the native people that were here didn't sell their land willingly. They didn't get it leased out. They had it taken from them. So that the beginnings of this nation are rooted in racial violence. That is, that you don't have Jamestown, you don't have the founding without somebody looting, destroying, tearing up, and stealing from somebody else. But in this case, that was Europeans from native peoples. Come on, y'all, if you want to... all right, wait, see, you guys got to understand. The greatest thing about this time period that we're in right now is that we are celebrating the end of enslavement, but we are also committing to the end of racism. Do you guys hear me? So Juneteenth should be, we are celebrating one thing, but we should be here committing. Frederick Douglass said in his famous "What to the Slave is the 4th of July" speech that people who only talk about the past do that because they are not doing anything in the present. Y'all hear me? Y'all hear me? So we can talk about celebrating the end of something, but we should be also talking about committing to the end of something else, which is in the power of this generation and this point in time. All right? So we start with this racial violence, and what I'm saying is this time period is so beautiful. When I see the protests with these young people, oh, y'all got to give it up to the young people. You got to give it up to the young people. You got to give it up to the young people. Oh my God. They changed the name of Sambos. What is up with that? You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is, for so many of us, we have had to deal with, and people use this term microaggression. Microaggression ends up being like these paper cuts of oppression and aggression that come at you. But oftentimes, they are not micro, they are macro. They are macro. Someone else is belittling the experience by calling them macro or micro to us, and we're like, no, that's serious. I remember this, it was 2 years ago. My daughter and them took me out for my birthday, took me to Santa Barbara, which I love, and we were at a hotel, and we're right next to the restaurant called Sambo's. And I'm sitting here, and it's 2018, and I'm looking out the window, and I can't enjoy my birthday. Y'all get where I'm coming from? Because the sign Sambo is flying in the window and illuminated. It's as if you were Jewish. And somebody had a Nazi flag just hanging up in front of you, a swastika. Or we're uplifting the names of Adolf Hitler and all those types of people. We don't think about that, but African Americans deal with that every single day. I was in Alexandria, Virginia. And the biggest street in Alexandria, Virginia is called Jefferson Davis Parkway. Now, he's the head of the Confederate States of America. Right. Now, this is the United States of America. And the United States of America fought a war with the Confederate States of America. Right. And that entity lost. And yet we have streets leading to the capital of the United States of America, named after the president of the Confederate States of America. Only in America, because of systemic racism, would that even be allowed to exist. We don't have streets named after Ho Chi Minh. We don't have streets named after Hideki Tojo or Adolf Hitler. Do y'all get where I'm coming from? But the systemic issue is the fact that because we are of African descent, people have just been willy-nilly with our feelings, with our lives, with everything. And so when we begin this context of trying to move forward, we have to be real about talking about racism as it is. I remember, I know Dr. Charles, you probably do a lot of this. I would go in and do trainings with people about diversity and multiculturalism and everything else. And at the end, I remember, and I fought myself for this. You walk out and everybody's smiling.
Right.
Everybody feeling good. Right. You said just enough to get people to think, but not enough to get them to change.
All right.
Did you hear me?
Come on.
Just enough to get them to think, but not enough to get them to change. Because change requires, come on, bro, an internal thing.
Yeah.
When he talked about inside of me, you guys understand that the end of racism is not on black people.
Come on. Say that.
Listen to me. It is not on black people. We've been wanting to end racism since the beginning. We've been done with this from the beginning.
Right.
The end of racism is on white people.
Yes, sir.
Listen to me. Don't take it the wrong way. You got to talk to your cousins. You got to talk to your kids.
Yeah.
You got to talk to your father, your uncles, your business leaders who you know in your heart of hearts do things that are systemically designed against certain people.
That's right.
You know it. You talk to people like me and say my uncle, my cousin, my friend, all these things, but you don't say anything to them.
All right.
You guys, I'm sorry, but we are done with pussyfooting around. Y'all get where I'm coming from? Tiptoeing around the issues. These young people have said, if you don't listen, we're going to tear it up.
That's right.
The young people have said, listen, they are pushing these corporations, which because they're saying we're not standing for it anymore.
Right.
What I'm saying is, y'all, listen, I was born in 1966, so that means that Martin Luther King was still alive when I was born. But I grew up on hip hop and Michael Jackson. Y'all get me? We try to act as if that's of some time ago, that it was some different. But if you grew up on hip hop and Michael Jackson, you're figuring, how could the Klan still exist? Right. Confederate states, Confederate flags, racism, all that.
Right.
It does not help for us to we call it preaching to the pulpit. I'm going to talk to another black person. I'm going to talk to a Latino. I'm going to talk to No. Y'all, we need you to stand up and do the right thing.
Yes, sir.
To stand in the corporate room and do the right thing.
Yes,
we need you to be in the school board and do the right thing.
Yes,
you guys understand, listen. Systemic racism is just not about the violent expressions of it. It is about the policies that people create that then reproduce unequal conditions over and over and over again. That's why we call it a system, because it replicates itself the same way no matter where you are. Why do you go to Chicago and you see black people living over there, and then you go to New York and they're living over there, and then LA and they're living over there, and what you've been told your whole life is because they don't want to. No, there's a system that has put them in this place, that denied them access to wealth, home buying, home improvement loans. Y'all get where I'm coming from? You know, my grandmother came here from Texas, and when she came to Los Angeles, California, she lived in South Central because they did not allow African Americans to buy houses outside of that district. Because it was a restrictive covenant on the deed that, you guys get me? What I'm trying to say is, it's not just some guy named Bubba who's a racist. It's systems that have to change. It is systems that have to change. Listen, your destiny in the world. You know, in the 1850s and the 1860s, certain religious groups started realizing that the issue was slavery. And what I mean by that is the Quakers and others started saying that when they got to heaven, God was going to judge them on where they stood around the issue of slavery. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? They started to say to themselves, and they started to preach to their congregations that you had to do something in the now. Because when you got to the pearly gates, God was going to ask you the question of where you stood on the issue of slavery. And if you couldn't have nothing to say, you're going straight to hell with gasoline drawers on, as we say. Come on, y'all. I'm telling you that right now the issue of the day, of the time, of the era is the end of racism. And the question has to be to you that when you meet your maker and he asks you the question, or she asks you the question of what you did with your life when this time 2020 was here, what did you do? Did you go to a rally? Great. Did you post something positive? Great. But did you do something to change it? Y'all get me? Did you do something to change it? Did you do something to change it? Did you actively participate? Did you do something? Did you take a risk with your own life? A risk with your own job? A risk with your own privilege? A risk with your own status? A risk with your own inability to be invited to the cookout? Y'all get where I'm coming from? You don't want to say nothing because you feel you'll be socially ostracized. Nobody will invite you anymore. They'll tell you not to come. There's another cookout, y'all. There's another cookout. I got some barbecue going right now. You come to my house. You ain't got to worry about that one. What I'm trying to tell you is it is about the now. It is about the now. We have celebrated and we will celebrate the end of the institution called slavery. And for those of you guys who say this, it'll never end. It's racism. It's a part of America. Remember, slavery was a part of America. People said it would never end. And then all of a sudden, good black folk agitated, pushed, moved, Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Henry Highland Garnett, Harriet Tubman, Search for the Truth, and then they were aided by Susan B. Anthony and William Lloyd Garrison and other folk. Y'all get it? And then some folk gave their life in a war to make sure that freedom came to everyone. Y'all get me? So the question for you, once again, is what you gonna do? It's beautiful to be here today, but we're preaching to the pulpit. The real job is to go out there and do it outside of these four walls. Y'all get me? Be true social justice warriors, not just in name, but I want you to go to your grave with a marker that says, I ended systemic racism in America. I ended systemic racism in America. I ended systemic racism in America. We out, y'all.